Hey guys! Today for my video, Jack Skellington will be joining us. I know that in my last video I said that I would like to try to be a little less serious and to attempt to be more funny. I'm sure some of you find me hilarious because I'm such a quirky person. But, I have a couple things that I want to talk about, but I tried to think about something more positive than, the things that have been slowly revealing themselves to me over the course of my life, I guess, as I wake up a little more each day. So today's topic is about remembering who you are. That is actually my advice for this video, is just to remember who you are, despite all the outside forces or the circumstances that you have had to endure, sometimes of your own making and sometimes of outside influence, obviously. But for today, I mentioned in the last video that I don't have a lot of memory of my childhood. I really don't remember anything up until 6 years old. And I think that's probably pretty common. If it's not, then I had no idea. Because, of course, I thought that that was normal. So from 6 years old, I have a very few memories, and there's a few from the time that I was 6 to 12, in my early adolescence to my my preteen years, and I remember a lot more once I became a teenager. But I would like to say that despite all of the really negative things that I've been through in my life, of course there are positive things, and I've had to remind myself of that as well. So over the years and through the abuse that I have been a part of in one way or another, there was a time that I had a childlike innocence, and there were good things that happened to me. And I feel like I've remained or sustained some or a lot of that childlike innocence, even though, I'm getting old. So I wanted to share a few stories with you guys. And I know I talk about myself a lot, but it's because I prefer not to talk about other people. I'm not just out here trying to call everybody out, but in the same aspect, I actually do feel the need to call out things that I kept quiet about before, because keeping quiet, it doesn't do anyone good except for the perpetrators. So, remembering who I am. So I have 3 stories. And of course, they're really goofy, guys, because I'm goofy. But the first one that I remember, and this also kind of ties in with celebrating yourself, you know. Again, it's not a vanity thing. It's a lifting myself up thing in hard times and trying dire circumstances. It's good to remember the things that did make me happy, that did make me proud of myself. So, first one is I was in 5th or 6th grade. I can't remember exactly. But we were assigned an assignment in our class to put on a presentation of sorts. So I don't remember exactly what the outline was or what the instance was. It might have just been like introducing yourself to the new class. So we're starting 6th grade, right? I went to junior high school as opposed to a middle school. So the elementary was K through 6, and then we went on to 7 through 9 for junior high school, and then 10th through 12th for high school. So I really want to say this was probably the beginning of 6th grade. But we had to do a presentation. So I sought out my best friend at the time. We had been friends for a couple of years. She actually lived within pretty close proximity to me. It was still a car ride. It wasn't like walking distance. But we would hang out all the time. And she was an outcast, just like I was. So we hit it off. And we were really good friends. And I do remember a couple of times where she was treated poorly, she was bullied or whatever, and I would stand up for her because that's just the kind of person I am. I definitely don't condone bullying in any way. And she caught a little bit more of the brunt of things than I did. But anyways, so our presentation, we got together and I was like, we should do Bohemian Rhapsody. And, you know, if you guys haven't noticed, I'm very musically inclined. I previously played 2 instruments. I played saxophone in junior high, and I also played guitar for many years because I had a couple of friends that helped me learn. My stepfather, back in the day, my first stepfather, he actually got me a Beatles like guitar learning kit with a Samick guitar, an electric guitar. And I was able to play the cassette tapes and read the books as I played the cassette tapes. And I learned how to read music on, string music, because I was reading music on a wind instrument, which they do differ. So I already was playing saxophone. I learned how to play guitar, and then I had a handful of friends that also played guitar. So they would teach me the songs like Metallica and I never learned how to play Greensleeves, even though I would love to. And one of my friends, she played it impeccably. Megadeth, Metallica, there's a lot, I knew like a whole lot of Beatles songs because there were several cassette tapes in that kit. And not only was I reading the music, but I was able to listen to the rhythm and the beat. And I picked it up like really quickly. And I would sit in front of my mom and my stepdad, and I would play my guitar and show them what I'd learned. And it was really cool. It was a proud moment for me, even though I don't know really how to accept praise, or at least way back then I didn't. I felt like, I'm not very good or whatever, but they were like really impressed. So I was pretty good. And then my two best friends and my best friend's boyfriend, who all played music, all played guitar, they taught me lots of songs. They taught me how to read tablature, because I actually read music. I didn't know anything about tablature. So they would show me. And then my first husband, he was an Yngwie Malmsteen on the guitar. If you know, you know. He definitely reinforced like the whole scales and the, oh my gosh, it's I can't remember the word. It's like Pentatonic scale or something like that. It's been so long, I can't remember, but he showed me like a whole new level. Like this guy was amazing. Like he was probably the best guitar player, the best unknown guitar player in all of our town or something. But anyways, and I will just say that's also why I put the guitar down, because I was getting really good. But when he did pass away, I couldn't find it in myself to pick up the guitar again, and I haven't, and that was 20 years ago. So even though I've always kept a guitar on hand, I intend to relearn it, because at this point I'll have to relearn it completely. And I want my daughter to also learn. So I've always, and I had a beautiful acoustic Ibanez that was gifted to me for many, many years. Before all this happened, I did have to pawn it, unfortunately, but it was replaced, another gift, which was much less valuable. It was just, what do you call it? A Cracker Jack, guitar or whatever. But still, I was going to teach my daughter. So, and I will. I still will teach my daughter. But anyways, I am trailing off, because you guys know I'm really good at that. For those of you that are still tuning in. Anyways, so I'm meeting with my friend at her house, and I'm like, this is what we should do for our school project, and what do you think? And she's like, that's awesome. I think it's great. So we show up to school that day, and we had a boombox or whatever, and we put on the Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. And we got in front of the class, and, we had some kind of attire. It wasn't much or whatever, but we got in front of the class and we acted out the Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. So we're all, singing the operatic parts and whatever at the beginning. And then as the song goes into the power ballad part of it, we just start headbanging. And the entire class cheered and they were clapping and they were just like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And we headbanged, and then we got our composure back and we sang the rest of the song, the vibrato and whatever. And anyone can see, it doesn't really matter to me. Do 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 do. The end, right? So that was really cool because, like I said, she and I, we were a couple of underdogs. We were outcasts. We weren't so much nerds, but, both of us wore glasses, and just, we weren't received, like, we weren't perceived. Like, nobody just even wanted to give us the time of day, until that happened. And then people were like, hey, that was pretty cool. So that is my first, little snippet. The next one, so that was like 5th or 6th grade. I'm pretty sure it was 6th grade. But the next one is we move on to 7th grade. And this is slightly before things get sticky, but we're transitioning from elementary school to junior high school. And at that time, I remember that I was a huge Drew Barrymore fan. There was a stage in her career that we actually looked quite similar. And I just idolized her. I loved her, especially in the movie Mad Love, which it's funny because she was pretty mentally unstable in that movie, which of course I was dealing with teenage angst and whatnot. Always feeling like the black sheep and, things of that nature, which I think is typical for teenagers. That's why I said, of course I do remember the hell that it is to be a teenager. But I showed up on my first day and I had this beautiful, like medieval looking floral dress. So it was medieval in the way that it was floral down to the ankles. So it was kind of flower girl style, but it had like a knitted top, like kind of like a weaved basket style capri, or not capri, like a camisole type thing that went over the top of it. And it, it had thin straps, not spaghetti straps. But it was a beautiful dress, and I absolutely loved it. But I felt like I would look too girly or just not me unless I also wore my combat boots. And I did. I sported combat boots up to my mid-shin. So that was the dress that I wore on the first day of the year for junior high school. And it was a pretty close replication of the movie, even though she wore like those big soccer socks that went up to the knees and combat boots as well, and like jean shorts, or her flower dress was much different. But I had also worn that style where it had like the little white cami underneath, and then the flower like ankle length dress that went over it. I'm sure a lot of people have worn those, you know, for my women out here, if there are any women watching me at all. But anyways, so I remember I was in, now I'm wondering if it was actually, was it 7th grade? That might have been a little bit later, while I was still building my style. Okay, so 7th grade, before I get to the last story, okay, because I'm pretty sure that was 9th grade, because I was in 9th grade anatomy, and I know that didn't happen in 7th grade. So 7th grade, my best friend that I had been friends with since 4th grade, not the one that we did Bohemian Rhapsody together, but pretty much my very first best friend. She was incredibly shy when I met her, and I had just transferred from another school. So in 4th grade, she didn't talk to anybody. She was really shy, and everybody kind of just left her alone because she wasn't very social. And I just walked up to her and I was like, "Hey, I'm Michelle. What's your name?" And we became the greatest of friends from 4th grade on, until our 40s, honestly. But she had a friend that she knew that was a year older than us. So when we moved on into junior high in 7th grade, she was like, "Hey, this is my friend that lives down the street from me, and I've known her and hung out with her for, you know, a while or whatever. I want you guys to meet." So of course we hit it off and stuff, and she was really cool, older than us just a little bit, by a year or whatever, but we ended up being really good friends. And I remember this is really funny, but you know, we're in the cat eye eyeliner phase and stuff when nobody else was doing it, you know, like we had the dark eyeliner, wore the dark clothes, had the dark hair, and, you know, got that witchy woo-woo vibe or whatever. And we're all just getting to know each other, but we're starting to, well, the new friend for me, the three of us are becoming like a trifecta, basically. And then we have a pep rally at school, and, you know, we're all dark and witchy and whatever. So we go to the pep rally and we're all sitting together and we're watching the cheerleaders do pyramids down in the court or whatever. And we're just screwing around. And, you know, we're like, what would happen if the cheerleader on the very top of the pyramid fell or whatever? That would be funny or whatever. So we're jokingly like, well, I jinx you, I jinx you, I jinx you. And I did that. I pointed at the cheerleader at the very top of the pyramid, and I jinxed her. And we all watched her fall. And of course, that sounds awful, but she was caught because they were practicing anyways. They were warming up for their performance or whatever. And I would just like to say, like, it wasn't intent to harm. Obviously, it wasn't trying to, you know, seriously injure anybody or whatever. We're just screwing around as kids. But it was kind of funny because we all were like, whoa, like, whoa, that just happened. The timing was too perfect. And it reminds me a little bit of like the movie The Craft, where, you know, they've got 3 girls that, they're all about it, whatever. And they introduce a fourth who's a total novice, and she comes in, but she blows them away because she's got the gift, right? And then she actually eventually powers the entire coven, That's kind of like the vibe, okay? Even though, like I said, I've never had any intent to hurt anyone. I do have magical hands, though. Healing hands, really. Especially now in my adulthood and in a situation like that where I realize, wow, I might have a little more power than I realized. So I don't use it for malicious intent. And since then, I really haven't ever, anyways, that was my second story. I thought it was kind of cool. Like, I was a little bit like, whoa, I can't believe that just happened. And we did that. And I'm not proud of foiling the pyramid or whatever, but I am remembering my power. And that's important, especially when in this world, a lot of people, they want to take your power so that they can manipulate and use and abuse you. And then my third and final story for my childhood that I just recently, remembered as I've been thinking about this stuff is, so it was in 9th grade where I was all about Mad Love and Drew Barrymore, and I had kind of upgraded my style from just, Alice in Chains band shirts and Pearl Jam band shirts and, the thick black eyeliner. This was the first day of 9th grade, and I wore my flowery medieval style dress and my combat boots, and we're in the anatomy class. It was, my teacher was Mr. Gilmore, and he was really cool. I really liked all of my teachers, actually. I was like a straight A student. If not straight A's, then A and B, just because, I had to be a good girl. It was enforced in me very young. You're not to be heard, just seen, and, you got to do your best in everything and make the good grades and, just whatever. I was an A honor roll, AB honor roll student, like for most of my life. And then also I was in honor classes in high school, which I really preferred. It was more my pace. Kids actually gave a shit, and, they paid attention instead of just fucked off or whatever in class. And I appreciated that because I was there to learn, and I was there to get a good grade and not screw up, with the exception of PE. I failed PE pretty intentionally because I wouldn't dress out. Like, every day I would I don't have my dress out clothes, and they'd be like, okay, walk the track. And we'd walk the track, the couple of people that were with me, and we'd smoke cigarettes and walk the track and be like, ha ha, we outsmarted them, And then when I had to do summer school for PE, I was like, shit. But the summer school was actually, it was way more fun than the whole year of PE. We did like step aerobics and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually really fun. Even though I had to spend my summer at school. But anyways, so it was, whatever, fourth period anatomy. And I walk in there and we're all sitting down and stuff. And one girl approaches me and she starts talking to me. And I don't even remember what was said, she's like, oh, I love your dress. And she's like, oh my gosh, I think you'll really like this CD, after we talked about music for a little bit. And she handed me a Sarah McLachlan CD. And I was like, yeah, I don't know who that is. And, she's like, well, check her out. You'll love her. And then it was day 2 and I still had the CD in my bag. And I think I like pulled it out and I was like looking at it. I was like, what's this all about or whatever. And this guy, he comes up, he's in all black. He has like shoulder length, black, curly hair. He has red tinted glasses, they're like prescription glasses, but they have red tint, and a trench coat and combat boots and, all black. And he starts talking to me and I'm like, he's like, what's that you got? And I was like, oh, it's a CD. Is Sarah McLachlan? And he was like, that's not going to do it for you. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, have you ever heard Tori Amos? And I'm like, no, I haven't. So he's like, I will hook you up. And then the following day, he brings me a burned cassette tape, of Little Earthquakes by Tori Amos. And that seriously changed my life. Tori Amos changed my life. And I will proudly say that is part of why I am the independent and self-loving woman that I am today. Of course, it took years of trials and tribulations and a lot of learning. And as I mentioned before, setting boundaries and things of that nature. But she was the foundation for who I grew and evolved into being, which is outside of the box. Of course, when I was really young, I grew up on pop music for a short period of time. I absolutely loved Mariah Carey, and I loved to sing. And I knew all the words to every song of every album of Mariah Carey, until my first stepdad, he was just like probably tired of hearing me howl or whatever, but he was like, shut up, you sound terrible. And I stopped singing after that. I just never sung out loud again after that for years. But then, like I said, he bought me the Samick, he bought me the Beatles anthology kit or whatever, and I learned how to read string music and play guitar, and I still was able to foster my love for music. I just stopped singing, and I love to sing. I may not be very good at it, but I do. I love to sing. It makes me happy. So recently I threw out, that very harsh, impression that I received as a teenager. I was like, whatever, I don't care who hears me and I don't care who hates it. I'm gonna sing. And I remember even there was one time I was hanging out with my older best friend. It was, it was the three of us because we were inseparable for many, many years. But we're all hanging out in the car and they were playing something and everybody in the car was singing and I was lip syncing. I knew every word, but I wasn't singing. I wasn't saying anything out loud. And another one of our friends looked at me. He was driving and he was like, "Why aren't you singing?" And I'm like, "Oh, because I can't sing." But I actually really love to sing. I'm sure I could use some singing lessons. But anyways. So, Tori Amos changed my life. And this guy, he became one of my best friends as well. We were a crew. We all hung out. We were all the misfits, There was a small group of us, but we would all hang out on the weekends. And we had like black lights and glowing stars. And another one of our friends, he would like dance and trace the stars, he'd hold them in his hands and trace them around, and we called them goat heads, because an upside down star looks like a goat head, right? All in good kid fun. But, we're teenagers. We're 14, 15. I don't know, maybe a little earlier than that. I can't remember because honestly, all of that shit just flows together. Like, I left home when I was 15. I got married when I was 17. Like, it's hard for me to fit all these instances so closely together. But apparently that is kind of how it happened. Is I was a kid. I was having fun as a kid. I was making top grades in school. And then at a concert, at the Warped Tour, I met this guy that was older than me, and then everything started going really, really fast. And, I went from the kid who was hanging out in the garage and, playing in the blacklight with stars and whatever and listening to music to being on the fast track to going into a work program and school program and getting my diploma really quickly and then getting married and then going over the road for 2 years and, being a co-pilot and reading the atlas while he drove us around the country or whatever. But anyways, so we became fast friends. We were all inseparable. We had our own little crew. It was just a handful of us, but like I said, we were the misfits. We had our own wall in the high school. It was the freaks wall. So there was the rednecks, there was the, what else? There was like the nerds, there was the cool kids. I don't know. There was a couple of walls. We were the freaks and we leaned against the freak wall. I don't know. It's ridiculous. High school's ridiculous. And I would not repeat it again in a million years. I don't care how much you paid me. But anyways, so we were best of friends, hung out all the time, whatever. And then some things slowly started to go south, with this guy friend of mine, strictly platonic. But that's also probably why ultimately I was like, I'm done with this. Like, my own people are turning on me for no reason, with the exception of my two girls, that were my soul sisters and my best friends for most of my life, no matter what. But so one day I am not feeling well, and we're at lunch. We're all at our freak table or whatever. And I've got my head down, and I start feeling things hitting my head. And I'm like, what the hell? So I was kind of like falling asleep, but then someone started pelting me with crinkle cut French fries. And I kept my head down, and I just opened my eyes, and I was able to see through the crack of my arms. And I stayed there, and I listened. And I listened to a couple of my friends proceed to talk shit about me as they, laughed and threw French fries at my head. They just thought they were hilarious. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So I got up after I had, I had waited. I waited and I observed the situation. I got the data I needed. And I got up and I went and I walked through the lunch line, and I grabbed 2 cartons of chocolate milk. And then I came around the table where my good old friend who introduced me to Tori Amos, I will always appreciate him for that. He was a pompous asshole, really. But he actually had his brand new Tori Amos band shirt on that day. It was white, and it had Tori Amos on it. But I just casually, on my way towards him, I had already popped open the tops of the chocolate milk. I casually walked behind him, and I dumped them all over his head and onto his brand new Tori Amos shirt. And he stood up. He was like, oh, he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, you dumb bitch. And he was just soaking in his black curly shoulder length hair was soaking wet. And I just looked at him and I laughed at him. And I was like, don't fucking throw shit at me ever again. And I walked away. And of course, we both got in trouble. I think I got like ISS or whatever. But I enjoyed ISS because the teacher there, she was incredibly nice to me. Like she knew that I was different. And, a couple of those kids in there were different. I actually met my high school sweetheart in ISS. And he was the greatest guy that I've ever met. Like, hands down. He always will be. But yeah. So, back to remembering who I am. I am not a dummy. And I was pretty assertive. I knew that I stood out, and I didn't care. I was like, you know what? I am different. And if you don't like it, whatever. That's your problem. Because I am who I am. Then I was a cool kid, even though I wasn't. I was a freak, And I would also just like to say that despite all the crap that I have been through in, the last 10 or 15 years of my life, like, there were good things. I was somebody before I, became stuck and stagnant and homeless and carless and just trying to make this shit work with a child, after everyone abandoned me and left me out in the cold with my child. Before that, I actually was successful. I was on a pretty good path, Like, Yes, my first marriage was a total disaster, and I was widowed at 22 years old, okay? But my second marriage was actually, it was really good. Like, we were together for 8 years, and I worked. I've always worked. I worked part-time at a credit union as a teller, and I started my own pet sitting business. And I worked at the credit union, and I was the only pet sitter in the entire town of Moab, Utah. And ironically enough, my business name was Sitting Duck Pet Sitting, which it's really funny because at the time I was like, this is funny. It's a play on words. I'm an easy target. You can find me, really easily or whatever. And later on in life, not too much later, but people really did perceive me as an easy target. Like, oh, this one we can get over on her. No problem. You were sorely mistaken, unfortunately, for you. Not for me, obviously. And I'm not trying to boast. Like I said, sometimes you just got to lift yourself up, especially when you're feeling like you're in the shit and in the gutter, Like, things are not terrible here, but they are not ideal. They are not ideal. I live in a place that also, houses predators, pedophiles, drug dealers, you name it. You don't know, but there's no background check required, unlike when you're renting a home or even if you're trying to get a mortgage on a home, and it's sketch. It's not ideal, but that's okay because we'll get out of here. We will. I have faith. I have faith in my own abilities, and I also have faith in my ancestors and my family and I's divine protection. We have it for a reason because we don't try to hurt anybody. So I did want to close with that long drawn out story. I gotta turn the light on because it's getting kind of dark. So yeah, my good old buddy, my good old friend who gave me the Tori Amos tape, he specified that Mother was the song for me, which is kind of funny. Like, he saw something in me that I didn't see yet. I was only, I don't know, like 12 or 13 years old or something. I don't know. Like I said, my timelines, they do get screwed up. But this song by Tori Amos, the GOAT, she really is. She's amazing. If you don't know, you should check her out. If you're a toxic masculine, you probably won't appreciate her because she's kind of a feminist, and she's kind of a white witch, and she talks about her songs like they are her children, because I also have her autobiography, and she's beautiful. She's from England or Britain and London. Anyways, the song. Go, 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 go now. Out of the nest. It's time. Go, go, go now. Circus girl without a safety net. Here, here now. Don't cry. You raised your hand for the assignment. Tuck, those ribbons under your helmet. Be a good soldier. First my left foot, then my right, behind the other. Pantyhose running in the cold. Mother, the car is here. Somebody leave the light on. Green limousine for the redhead dancing, dancing girl. And when I dance for him, somebody leave the light on. Confirmation? Just in case I like the dancing, I can remember where I come from. I walked into your dream, and now I've forgotten how to dream my own dream. You are the clever one, aren't you? Brides in veils for you. We told you all of our secrets, all but one. Now don't you even try. The phone has been disconnected. Dripping with blood and with time and with your advice. Poison me against the moon. Mother, the car is here. Somebody leave the light on. Black chariot for the redhead. Dancing, dancing girl. He's gonna change my name. Maybe he'll leave the light on. Just in case I like the dancing. I can remember where I come from. I escape into your escape into our very favorite fearscape. It's across the sky and across my heart and I cross my legs. Oh my God. First my left foot, then my right behind the other. Breadcrumbs lost under the snow. Mother, the car is here. Maybe he'll leave a light on. For the dancing girl. So, there's a few ways I can interpret this. From dude's perspective. Maybe he was saying, I was an imposter. Like, you're a little girly girl. You're all concerned about brides and veils and getting married, and you couldn't possibly be, at the level that we are while I, wear my combat boots and my trench coat and my rose-colored glasses. Or maybe he saw something in me before I even saw it. Like, your mom's absent. She's not there. She's saying, go now. Out of the nest, out of the safety net. And don't cry. Tuck the ribbons under your helmet and be a good soldier. Like, he saw in me that I was a warrior. Or he took it for granted, which, I'm used to that. For whatever reason, people take one look at me and they think, oh, she's a sucker. Well, I'm really not as unaware as people think. Yes, I am nice. I guess I look nice. But I'm no dummy. So it also reminds me of the narcissist journey, Like, For whatever reason, I've been seen as a little lamb. But I am fiercer in my experience. I have been through hell and back more than once. And ultimately, my advice for you, what I will tell my child and will share with you, because as I said before, it's no secret. I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to hold back. I really want people to know what is the secret in my sauce. Because if it can help you, then it helps humanity. And I'm totally down with that. Just remember who you are. Before anyone tries to cloud your judgment or cause confusion or try to make you doubt your own intuition. Like I said in a previous video, that is an instinct. That is a God-given instinct to you. Alarm bells go off. Heed those. Heed those. And remember who you are. No matter how many people try to tell you that you're something else. That's all I have for now. Love you guys.